What if the very thing you thought made you an easy target is actually the source of unstoppable power? And the moment you learn to control it is the moment everything and everyone that once controlled you loses its grip forever. There is a force within human connection that operates beyond logic, a silent current that draws certain personalities together with almost inevitable precision, and in your life you may have felt this pull without fully understanding its origin or its purpose. The empath carries a rare and powerful energy, one rooted in deep understanding, compassion, and an almost limitless capacity to give, while the narcissist moves through the world driven by a hunger for validation, admiration, and control. And it is within this contrast that the magnetic pull is born. You must recognize that what feels like coincidence is often alignment at the level of energy and need. The empath seeks to heal, to uplift, to bring light into dark places, and the narcissist instinctively senses this as a source of supply, a well that appears endless. This is not weakness on your part, but strength misdirected, power unguarded, and when power is unguarded, it becomes vulnerable to those who know how to take without ever intending to give. In your journey, awareness becomes your greatest weapon. The moment you understand that your empathy is not simply kindness but a valuable force, you begin to see why it attracts those who lack what you naturally possess. The narcissist is drawn not to your pain, but to your potential, not to your flaws, but to your light, and this realization should not discourage you, it should awaken you. Because within this dynamic lies a profound opportunity for transformation. You are not meant to shrink your empathy, nor to harden your heart, but to refine your boundaries and elevate your self-worth to a level where your energy is no longer freely available to those who misuse it. The pull only has power when it meets unconsciousness. When you move through life without recognizing your own value, you must begin to shift your perspective to see every interaction not as a test of your patience, but as a reflection of your standards. When you stand firm in your worth, when you decide that your compassion will be matched with respect, the dynamic changes. The same energy that once attracted imbalance now repels it, and in its place you begin to draw connections that honor, uplift, and strengthen you. The truth is, you were never meant to be a source of endless giving without return. You were meant to be a force of intentional impact, choosing where your energy flows and why. The magnetic pull is not your destiny. It is your lesson, and once learned, it becomes your liberation. Step into the awareness that your empathy is a gift, but like all gifts of power, it must be directed with wisdom. When you master this, you no longer become a target for those who seek to drain you, but a magnet for those who are aligned with your growth, your purpose, and your vision for a life that reflects not just who you are, but who you have decided to become. There is an invisible economy operating within every human interaction, a constant exchange of emotional energy that shapes outcomes more powerfully than words or appearances. And in your life, this exchange determines whether you rise in strength or become diminished by the demands of others. When empathy flows without awareness, it becomes a resource that can be drawn upon endlessly by those who have mastered the art of taking, and this is where the imbalance begins. You possess the rare ability to feel deeply, to understand unspoken pain, to give reassurance where there is emptiness, and to offer patience where there is chaos. Yet this very strength can become the fuel that sustains patterns you were never meant to support. The narcissistic personality thrives on attention, validation, and emotional reactions. And when your empathy responds automatically, it creates a cycle where your energy is invested while little is returned, strengthening their behavior while weakening your own sense of control. Understand this clearly. Every time you overextend yourself to fix, to rescue, or to prove your worth through giving, you are reinforcing a pattern that conditions the other person to expect more while offering less. It is not cruelty that drives this dynamic, but conditioning, a learned response to a source that appears limitless. And unless you become conscious of this exchange, it will continue to operate beneath your awareness. The turning point in your life comes when you recognize that empathy must be guided by intention, not impulse. Your ability to care is not meant to be exploited, it is meant to be directed with purpose. When you begin to ask yourself where your energy is going and what it is producing in return, you shift from unconscious participation to deliberate control. And this is where true power emerges. You are not required to abandon your empathy in order to protect yourself. You are required to discipline it. Just as a powerful river must be channeled to generate energy instead of destruction, your emotional depth must be guided by boundaries that ensure it nourishes rather than depletes you. When empathy is paired with self-respect, it no longer feeds destructive patterns, it transforms them. As you elevate your awareness, you will notice a change in how others respond to you. Those who once relied on your endless giving will feel the shift because the supply they depended on is no longer freely available. This is not loss, it is alignment. It is the natural consequence of valuing your energy as something precious rather than something disposable. The greatest realization you can carry forward is this: your energy is your currency, and where you invest it determines the quality of your life. When you choose to invest in relationships that honor your presence, support your growth, and reciprocate your effort, you create a cycle of empowerment rather than exhaustion. Stand firm in the understanding that your empathy is a strength of immeasurable value, but only when it is governed by awareness and intention. When you master the exchange of energy within your life, you cease to be a source of fuel for imbalance and become instead a creator of harmony, drawing into your world those who meet you not in need, but in strength and mutual respect. There exists a subtle line between strength and exposure, a line so fine that many cross it without awareness, believing they are acting from their highest virtue, while unknowingly placing themselves in positions that drain their spirit. In your life, compassion is one of your greatest assets, a force that allows you to connect, to uplift, and to inspire. Yet when it operates without discipline, it can quietly transform into vulnerability that others learn to exploit. You have been taught that giving is noble, that understanding is powerful, and that patience is a sign of character. And all of these truths hold value, but only when they are balanced with self-respect. The hidden trap appears when compassion is extended beyond its rightful limits. When you begin to prioritize another person's needs at the cost of your own stability, and in doing so, you signal that your energy is available without condition. This is where the imbalance takes root. Those who seek control or validation quickly recognize a person who gives without boundaries, not because they are wise, but because patterns reveal themselves through repetition. When you consistently excuse harmful behavior, when you justify disrespect in the name of understanding, you unintentionally teach others how to treat you. What begins as kindness becomes permission, and what was once your strength becomes the very channel through which your energy is depleted. The transformation in your life begins the moment you redefine compassion, not as endless tolerance, but as intentional giving. True compassion includes yourself. It requires that you honor your limits, that you recognize when your presence is no longer creating growth but enabling dysfunction. This awareness does not harden your heart. It sharpens your judgment, allowing you to give where it is deserved and withdraw where it is misused. You must understand that protecting your energy is not selfish, it is strategic. Every great achievement, every meaningful relationship, every sense of inner peace you desire depends on how well you manage the resources within you. When compassion is guided by clarity, it becomes a force of transformation. When it is driven by impulse, it becomes a doorway to exhaustion. In your journey, you will encounter moments where you feel the urge to give more, to fix more, to stay longer than you should, and it is in these moments that your growth will be tested. The decision to step back, to say no, to choose yourself, is not a rejection of others. It is an affirmation of your worth. It is the declaration that your kindness will no longer come at the expense of your well-being. As you rise in awareness, the dynamics around you will begin to shift. The individuals who once thrived on your unguarded compassion may resist your change, but this resistance is proof that the old pattern is breaking. In its place, you create space for connections that are built on mutual respect, where giving is balanced, and where your presence is valued rather than consumed. Carry this truth forward with conviction. Compassion is a gift, but like all powerful forces, it must be directed with intention. When you master this balance, you no longer fall into the hidden trap. You step beyond it, becoming a person who gives not out of obligation, but out of strength. And in doing so, you build a life where your kindness elevates you instead of diminishing you. There comes a moment in every life when illusion loses its grip, when what once felt overpowering begins to reveal itself as a pattern sustained only by your participation, and this is the moment where true power awakens within you. The influence that once seemed irresistible was never rooted in their strength alone, but in the unguarded access you allowed to your thoughts, your emotions, and your sense of self. You may have felt as though you were caught in something beyond your control, a cycle of confusion where clarity faded and doubt took its place, yet this experience was not a sign of weakness. It was the result of misdirected focus. Whatever you consistently give your attention to grows in influence, and when your energy is absorbed by someone who thrives on control, their presence expands in your reality until it feels inescapable. The first step in breaking this hold is awareness, a sharp and unwavering recognition that what you once perceived as power over you was, in truth, a dynamic fueled by your responses. When you withdraw the automatic reactions, when you refuse to engage in the patterns that once kept you entangled, you begin to disrupt the very foundation upon which that influence was built. You must understand that your mind is the command center of your life. Every belief you accept, every emotion you entertain, every action you repeat contributes to the structure of your reality. When you allow external manipulation to dictate your internal state, you surrender authority. But the moment you choose to think independently, to question what you once accepted without resistance, you reclaim that authority in full measure. This is not a passive process. It requires decision, discipline, and persistence. You will feel the pull to return to familiar patterns, to respond as you once did, to seek validation where it was never consistently given. But growth demands that you act in alignment with your higher awareness rather than your conditioned habits. Each time you choose differently, you weaken the old pattern and strengthen your independence. Reclaiming your power is not about confrontation. It is about detachment with purpose. It is the ability to observe without absorbing, to understand without surrendering, and to stand firm in your identity regardless of external pressure. When you no longer seek approval from those who cannot offer genuine respect, you free yourself from their influence entirely. As you rise in this awareness, something remarkable begins to happen. The energy that was once drained by confusion and emotional turmoil becomes available for creation, for growth, for the pursuit of goals that align with your true potential. Your focus sharpens, your confidence strengthens, and your sense of direction becomes clear because it is no longer clouded by external control. You are not here to exist under the shadow of another's influence. You are here to define your own path with clarity and conviction. The spell was never permanent. It was sustained by repetition, and what is sustained can be broken when the pattern is no longer fed. Step forward with the certainty that your power has always belonged to you. When you guard your attention, direct your energy with intention, and stand firm in your worth, you become unshakable, a force that cannot be controlled because it is fully aligned with its own purpose, and in that alignment, you discover a freedom that no external influence can ever take from you. There is a powerful transformation available to you, one that shifts your identity from being someone who is easily affected by the demands of others into someone who commands their own reality with clarity and strength. This transformation does not occur by chance. It is the result of awareness, decision, and disciplined action applied consistently over time. You may have once found yourself in positions where your kindness was mistaken for weakness, where your willingness to understand became an open door for those who sought to take more than they were willing to give. Yet this phase of your life was not your definition, it was your initiation. Every experience that tested your patience and stretched your emotional capacity was preparing you for a higher level of self-mastery. The moment you begin to see yourself not as a victim of circumstance, but as a creator of outcomes, everything begins to change. Your empathy, once scattered and reactive, becomes focused and intentional. You no longer give to prove your worth. You give because it aligns with your standards, and when those standards are not met, you withdraw without hesitation or guilt. This is where your rise begins. You develop the ability to observe behavior without becoming entangled in it, to recognize patterns without feeling responsible for fixing them, and to stand firm in your values regardless of external pressure. What once drained you now teaches you. What once confused you now sharpens your awareness. And what once weakened you now strengthens your resolve. Understand that your greatest power lies in your ability to direct your energy. When you invest your attention in growth, in purpose, and in environments that support your expansion, you elevate your entire experience of life. Those who once influenced you lose their hold, not because they have changed, but because you become selective with your presence, intentional with your time, and unwavering in your boundaries. This is not isolation, it is alignment. It is the recognition that your life is too valuable to be spent in cycles that do not contribute to your progress. As you make these shifts, you begin to attract individuals who operate at a similar level of awareness, where mutual respect replaces imbalance and growth replaces conflict. The journey from being targeted to becoming powerful is not about hardening your heart, it is about strengthening your foundation. You retain your compassion, but you pair it with wisdom. You maintain your ability to connect, but you anchor it in self-respect. This balance is what sets you apart, allowing you to navigate life with both depth and strength. There will be moments where your past patterns attempt to resurface, where the familiar pull of overgiving or over-explaining calls for your attention. But each time you choose discipline over impulse, you reinforce your new identity. You are no longer defined by how much you can endure, but by how wisely you choose to engage. Step fully into this elevated version of yourself, where your empathy becomes a tool for creation rather than a channel for depletion.